Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new discussion here at Film.Music.Media. My name is Kai Savas, and I'm sitting down with the amazing Denise Santos. Denise, thank you so much for joining me today. It's so great to chat one-on-one with you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to start. I like to start with this question. I've been doing it recently, and I love all the different answers. So you can take it as a surface level question or a deep philosophical question, however you take it, as a person, as an artist, as a storyteller, as a musician. I'm curious. What does music mean to you?
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. It'd be shallow or very deep. I
Yeah.
think I'm gonna choose the deep side of it. I think music for me is connection. Music is memory. Those are the
Mhm.
two things that I like to think of it as. I have this story about when I moved schools when I was like in high school, and I knew nobody in this new school, and I found a solid like group of friends because one day I brought a guitar, and I feel like the right people gravitated towards me and vice
Yeah.
versa. And I always cherish that. It's like a core memory to me, for me, of what music is, because I think it connects people. Music has this power of being able to say something that you can't normally say with words. And I'm talking like even like melodies and chord structures and progressions. That it has just so much power. So I think it to me it's connection and
Yeah.
context of like what I do, writing music for film and TV. I think over the last 12 years that I've been doing this, it's just kind of been it's been validating this idea for me that music is connection, because I'll often, as you know, like we get films with no music in it, and directors always come to composers in a way to like help them deliver the emotion that they weren't able to fully capture, or it was already there and they just need enhancement. So
Yeah.
each time I've been dealt with this challenge of trying to create something out of thin air to express an emotion, that's just it's constantly I'm being told that music is connection. And then
Yeah.
to my other point of like music as memory, it's the way I remember people, it's the way I remember life, it's the way I remember experiences. It's through music. Like I'll remember what song was playing at a party that I was at where I was very uncomfortable, or very not uncomfortable. So yeah, to me it's a way of remembering. It's like a time capsule. So
Yeah, it's the universal language. I think it's what connects us all, and it's I think to me that's why I fell in love with. I'm not a musician, I'm not a composer, but I fell in love with storytelling because of music, and that's how I got into filmmaking. So that's why I've dedicated Film.Music.Media to kind of put a spotlight on it because I think it's so important, and especially people like you who are out there, bringing these stories to life. I think is just I'm always at awe from everybody's work, so especially with yours. So, but I'm curious before we dive into all your projects and everything and your general approach and all that. I want to learn more about your background. So talk to me about your childhood and growing up, and what was that like, and what do you remember? Kind of maybe was it like a aha moment where like music kind of like piqued your interest? Did it happen gradually though, maybe across childhood, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to gravitate towards this, or was it like a love at first sight thing? I'm curious, when did it come in your early years, and how did it kind of progress into a career?
well, I like to think it's like there's the aha moment, and then there was this like disillusion, and then the aha moment comes back. Like
Yeah.
so basically, I grew up in the Philippines,
Mm.
and my in my upbringing, my mom and my dad would always play music in the house. So I feel like I had my first aha moments as a kid. I have memories of them blasting music, and me and my siblings would be playing in their bedroom. So I feel like that was like a core memory for me. And one of the aha moments that I had was there was a time when my parents were out of town, and my siblings and I were left at home with our uncle, and I was missing my parents so much. And we were watching, I think we were watching TV. It was like I think a Disney movie. And you know that opening of the Disney, like they have this Sonic logo, the
Yeah, like
and that really like that even made me feel even more the emotions that I was feeling of like missing my
Yeah.
parents. So that's one aha moment. Aside from that, I grew up playing piano. My parents made us, me and my siblings, play piano from an early age since like 4 years old. So I just always have had it in my life.
Yeah.
And I was playing classical pieces, and then I felt like I found the world of jazz. So I asked my piano teacher to teach me like this Scott Joplin uh piece that I feel like it's like the gateway to jazz playing. Um and then I discovered the guitar, and I think because I was hitting an age where the guitar was cooler, so I
Yeah.
asked a teacher to teach me that, and also sang in my church choir. And then I think like in high school I started playing in bands a lot, and I had a lot of aha moments then.
Yeah.
Like I said, when I moved schools and created new friendships, like my best friends even till today are my bandmates from back then.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's really, really awesome. Um, so just there was this thing that we used to do. We would join Battle of the Bands a lot.
Yeah.
And there were like a few that we actually won. And we were an all female group. And it was like the best group too. We were called Death by Chocolate, and we were like 7 people in the band. We were just there to really have a good time.
What kind of music did you guys play?
You would be so surprised. It's like reggae pop,
That's awesome.
but so like random.
Yeah.
Um, but like we would join Battle of the Bands, and like the one moment that we won was another like aha moment. Like, wow, maybe there is something like in this that is for
Yeah.
me. So yeah, and then the the jaded moment was like when I realized I needed to choose a college degree,
Yeah.
and music was not like the first thing in my mind, because it just it just I honestly, it was pure um ignorance, or not just, and fear that I wasn't good enough for it. I played, my interests were more in pop music and alternative rock music, and I didn't feel
Mm.
confident enough to like audition and play my classical pieces. I just didn't think I was good enough.
Yeah.
But then I also didn't know there was a world wherein I could apply all my different interests. I thought it was this classical world or nothing.
Mm.
So I kind of forgot when I went to college for business, and I didn't explore my musicianship when I was like all 4 years of my college life. And then towards like fourth year college, I realized my aha moment came again, and I was like, I do
Yeah.
not like this. Something is missing. Like my life feels so just kind of bland.
Yeah.
So I slowly worked my way back into the industry. I joined bands again, and I started scoring as a freelancer, and I took a few classes. Like I took private classes. I took an online class in Berkeley, and just found myself back, and eventually moved to LA to study. And I've been here since. It's been like what, 8, 9 years?
That's amazing. I mean, look at, and you have an Emmy on your shelf, like in that 8 or 9 years. That's, I mean, that's like perfection to me. That's like chasing your dream and making it happen. And that's, I think a lot of people ask like, oh, what's the secret to like, success? But success is like that's a relative thing to everybody. So it's like, and to see you doing that. And, but I was curious, was that was it always film music going to be the choice, or was there anything else in music that was kind of a possibility, or was like film scoring to picture, narrative picture was like the thing that you wanted to do?
It was two things. It was either performing with a band,
Hmm.
or 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 film music. And it's interesting too, because the way I found out about film music as a thing that we can do is through a bandmate. So
Yeah.
when I had started joining bands again, one of my bandmates showed me a short that he scored, and it opened my world. And I realized, wow, like we band people can score films. Like, wow, that's incredible. So it was kind of like a twofold thing. And so it was always a bit of both. And I love movies. I love TV. And
Yeah.
I remember, like I think it was there was a new Alice in Wonderland movie that came out when I was starting out, and I heard it and I was focusing on the music and I was like, I feel like I could do that. So it was a little bit of both. It was always like side by side.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. So what were when you so you went to school, you moved to LA, I mean, you're out here. What were kind of the first steps for you? Like, how did you kind of get your foot in the industry? Was it did you just chase an internship? Did you chase working for a composer, or did you just start scoring shorts and kind of build up like, collaborators and directors that were also like making stuff? I'm curious what your approach was.
The first opportunity that came to me is the one that has kind of led to everything else in my life, and it was an internship at Remote Control
Yeah.
Productions.
Hmm.
I was I think my class at UCLA had a field trip to remote, and like I brought my resume during that field trip and was like, who do I
Just
talk to?
sliding it
Yeah,
under every door.
pretty much. Who do I talk to? Like,
Yeah.
get a chance to work here. And I remember like touring the Bleeding Fingers building, and the person who was facilitating the tour showed us some empty rooms, and he was saying, oh, one of you could be here. And I was like, I had this like
Yeah.
dream, like, well, I hope that could be me someday. So I gave him my resume after that tour, and it landed me an internship, and it kind of just snowballed from there. And while I was doing that, I was also trying to network here and trying to do short films, and
Yeah.
also tried to keep connected to my clients in the Philippines, because I felt like I when I left, I told them I'll be back in a year and a half. So I wanted to keep those connections. I want to still
Yeah.
stay rooted to my home. So I was also still writing music for films back home.
Yeah, because you scored, yeah, you've scored Filipino films, and and moving into a completely different world too. I mean, you're telling different stories from different experiences and different walks of life. And yeah, Bleeding Fingers, I mean, that's, I know a lot of composers that have gone through there, and it's this uh I mean, the model is so interesting because it's just they kind of you pitch for shows, they kind of bring them to you, and you get to get this variety of things. But you got, you scored your Primates that got your Emmy. So you won an Emmy, scoring this, amazing nature documentary. And Hans is definitely in that world, and BBC and him have it's a great relationship. And other composers that you've worked with, like Adam, Adam Lucas, who scores Frozen Planet with Andrew and all this, amazing stuff. Jacob, I remember doing Jacob for Blue Planet. So like, talk to me about those like few, I guess those first few projects when you started working at Bleeding Fingers. Were you nervous? Were you like when you first had like when you first got the for your first project, was Primates, was it that the first thing, or was there some stuff we were working on before?
There were some stuff that I was working on before, I believe, but it wasn't. I think Primates was the first like score to picture commitment that we did the music for all of it. Like
Mm,
I was thrown into other projects prior to that were score to picture, but it was always like a scene or two, or
yeah,
like some important scenes in the doc. But this was the first time where it was like from beginning to end, it was
right.
original. So if when you asked if I was nervous, I was very nervous. It was it felt so uncomfortable for me because Primates, I mean, nature documentaries are predominantly orchestral, and
Yeah.
while I knew how to write for orchestra, I just didn't feel like I was the best person to do it.
So you had like imposter syndrome like in your head.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
exactly. I felt so unworthy, but also naive enough to like
Yeah.
to go, let's give this a try. I feel like if I wasn't that naive, I would have like said no.
Right.
But I was like, okay, like it's exciting, whatever. And I was very excited to also work with Adam, and I kind of looked up to him and his orchestral chops. So
Yeah.
in my head, like, okay, I'm not alone in this. I think with Adam and Russell's guidance, I can get through it. So I did, and surprisingly too, what we ended up writing was not a purely orchestral score. Like it had a lot of pop inspiration,
Yeah.
and to my luck, I was able to bring in that side of me, and it actually enhanced the overall sound of the music. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that was the first
Yeah, I mean, you got to
project.
put your personality in it, and yeah, you co-scored with Adam, which and he's fantastic, and you guys did such an amazing job, and the Emmy was such well deserved. And but you had history before because you did Savage Kingdom right before. Was that outside of Bleeding Fingers? Was that a separate, or was that a
No,
Bleeding Finger?
that wasn't Bleeding Fingers, but
Oh,
that's what I was kind of talking about, where I only did like select scenes. It
right.
wasn't like there was no theme, like it was just like a few scenes of the episode, like of the show from different episodes.
Gotcha. Okay.
That in itself, I think I felt like was my audition tape anyway. Like
Right.
like I feel like I was auditioning for this like nature documentary world, and
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun doing it because it felt kind of low stakes. It
Hmm.
wasn't like, I feel like it's higher stakes when it's you have to score the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that one was in kind of an intro to nature documentaries.
Yeah, and you were able to. I mean, you worked on Primates, of course, but also Eden Untamed Planet, which you co-composed with Austin Hammonds, and just recently you have Island of the Sea Wolves, narrated by Will Arnett on Netflix, which you co-composed with Laurentia Editha, and which you've worked with her before, of course. So it's yeah. But before we jump into that, I want to talk about kind of your general approach at first. I know I always like to ask this question, and I know it's going to be different for every project, but in general, I'm curious, where for you does the first note come from? I'm curious about where do you like your starting point is on a project. If you're, on it early enough, which is a rarity, but do you like to read the script if you have that opportunity? Do you wait till there's a locked picture? Do you sit down and talk to the director first before you look at anything, or do you say, let me look at it and then come back with questions? I'm curious about if you had your choice of approach, what's your favorite way to approach things?
But definitely like reading a script and like having deep conversations with the director. It's almost like
Yeah.
therapy. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
why are you making this film? Like, I really would like to get to like the core of the why this film is important to them, or what the character arc is. And so I like to be there from the very early stages. I
Mhm.
love attending pre-production meetings, even though a lot of
Yeah.
times they don't address music right away, but they talk about like costumes and why the designer chose this particular costume, and set design. And I love hearing about the way they're lighting things and they're lensing things. It's every part of the production has a why, and
Yeah.
that just informs my why on like, why am I gonna choose this melody or this instrument. So I definitely like to be really really immersed in the project.
Yeah,
um
because it all you're kind of the last stop on the train, so it's important to see what's happening before it reaches you, I think. So you kind of are starting to put the pieces together. Of course, sometimes you have an idea at the start, and by the time you see the finished product, it's completely different than what you were imagining. But but I but I think it helps kind of generate some things or some ideas and melodies that you can maybe hum and work out. And I've known composers who would write a suite or something based on the script, and then the director will play it on the set. So I mean, it's not for waste or anything. So
Exactly. That's happened to me, and that's like a really nice experience because
yeah, wow,
you
that's
know
awesome.
everyone is like on the same page creatively. And
Yeah,
then
but
when you get the cut, it's just like you're just hashing it out even more. So it's cool.
yeah, I always like to remind people that like Sergio Leone, like, and Ennio Morricone, like Ennio did those scores for the spaghetti westerns before they shot, and they would play it on set and then edit everything to it. And for me, since I'm not a musician, when I need to come up with ideas, I listen to film music. It generates these sequences in my head. So like I think for filmmakers to have the composer be the first stop, I think is we should flip it, and the composer should be the first stop, and then kind of be there throughout the process. But
Right. We should
yeah. So
help spread the word.
yeah, absolutely. Music, I think, informs images and vice versa. So I mean, it works both ways. But I think it's a beautiful kind of give and take for music and images. That's why it works so well together. I think I grew up watching Fantasia. It was like one of my favorite films, and it's like just to see how music and images work together, and then the motion on the screen, which I think very much translates, and we can jump right back into nature documentaries, because you're working with these sequences and we're watching nature kind of unfold, and you do have kind of the narration that you have to work around, but you're scoring these emotional kind of arcs with animals and seeing the motion and seeing the edits. I'm curious, at least we can jump into Island of the Seawolves. I'm curious for that project, and it probably applies to all the other nature documentaries you've worked on. Like, how do you approach it? Like, how do you, I know like kind of different locales will kind of get certain different ideas and instruments, and certain animals have different personalities. So I'm curious how you approach it. Do you score it like a narrative feature, or do you kind of take a little bit more of like a back approach and just trying to score the feeling or the emotions of the whole scene?
I feel like for the ones that I worked on, at least, it's definitely different from like a narrative approach, because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're right. Like we do have to do a lot of informing with the music because the animals can't talk and
Right.
they can't express emotion as well as humans do. So I think definitely with nature documentaries, it's music is a big part in in telling the story. So
Yeah.
like for example, with Island of the Sea Wolves, Lauren and I selected instruments that were dedicated to certain animals. So I remember, like, for example, for the eagle, there was like the flute. And then for the bear, I used this resonator that I have over there.
Oh wow.
And then for the marmots, I used my little mandolin. It's kind of can't see it very well, but it's like this tinny sound, and marmots are like so cute and tiny. And
Yeah.
the story for the marmots was also like really romantic. So I had this like waltzy piece on the mandolin. So we kind of set those limitations for ourselves
Mm-hmm.
for each character. And then when we would work on the scenes, we at least were informed that, okay, it's a bear scene, so we're going to use this. And then, so that's what we did. And then just in terms of the story, we listened to the narration. We also listened to, I love getting spotting notes from the showrunners, because then I've had an experience where I didn't work off of any spotting notes, and I just
Mm-hmm.
got the emotion, or the well, the emotion was there, but where it was placed in the scene was a little bit delayed. So it was really nice to
Yeah.
get notes from the showrunner at the exact point where they want the emotion to change. So that's like something that I've found very helpful. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just it's a lot of music for nature documentary.
I can't imagine. I mean, that's why usually you see more than one composer, kind of tackling it, because they, and it's interesting. I talked to Adam and Andrew, and how they kind of tackle those services. I'm curious with you and Lauren, how did you kind of decide who's, is everyone like, oh, this is my favorite animal, I want to take this arc, or do I want this episode? I'm curious, like, how do you kind of divvy up the responsibilities?
We definitely because of the time crunch that we had, we gave each other episodes, and
Mhm.
then by the third episode we merged.
Yeah.
So yeah, because I think I was finishing up something, so I couldn't work on it right away, so I took a certain episode and she took one. And then yeah, by the third we already written enough to like be able to either music edit our way through the third or share scenes.
Right.
uh,
So
yeah.
for when you're dealing with the narration, which this one is narrated by Will Arnett, and of course most people are used to David Attenborough's iconic voice on a BBC production or anything like that. But so you have Will Arnett's narration, and you talk about spotting, and I think Adam and Andrew actually revealed that, like, oh, sometimes we get it, and like there's no narration yet, like
Yeah.
is there scratch kind of narration? Is there like somebody just kind of putting it in there first before Will Arnett does like the final thing? So do you have those spots already when you're scoring, or do you have a narration to work with, or you just have like the time, like timestamps of where it's going to be?
Every nature doc that I've worked on had scratch
Scratch.
narration.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was usually like the showrunner too. So
Yeah, it's always
it
just
was
like,
always,
yeah.
yeah. So it was never, yeah. Actually,
I mean,
sometimes like I get so used to it, and then I watch the real product, and I'm like, wait, that throws me off.
I know, like an animation for our animatics, sometimes we'll have our showrunner jump in, or somebody will jump in and put the scratch dialogue in, and then of course the voice talent will come in and record it later. So
Exactly. Which I'm curious about too. Like when the voice talent is then doing their recording, like, do they hear the music? I'm
for
curious.
an animation.
Yeah, or even in these nature docs, like I
Oh
wonder.
yeah, I don't know. Like because yeah, if they come in last, oh, in animation definitely they don't hear the music because they record first and then we go animate. But for
Oh,
for the nature documentary, yeah, because Will Arnett would have come into the booth and probably have a pretty much a finished episode, right? Or is he? I don't. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know if he's working off like a version that doesn't have your score in it yet. I'm not sure.
oh, but it would be interesting. In my mind, I'm like, okay, Will Arnett has heard my music. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Like I'm hoping he has.
Yeah, Denise, it was great. I love it.
Yeah.
So,
That
but yeah, but I mean, but it must be tricky to navigate that too, because you do have to kind of, you can't step on it. You can't. So I'm curious, is there like a secret tip to navigate narration? Because are there like parts when the dialogue comes in that the music has to step back? Or are you playing underneath it at all?
I definitely mark in my sessions where there is narration,
Mhm.
and also it depending on like the importance of what they're saying too. So I mark it, and I more often than not try to avoid it.
Yeah, because you don't want to tangle up on that.
Because like if there's music there, I know they're gonna say, "Oh, you're clashing," or if it's kept, then I know it's gonna be mixed really low, and like all of the hard work is gonna be unheard. So,
Yeah.
and it's kind of wise to like walk around it.
Yeah. So I'm curious, because I can't imagine what the editing process is like for the post team, because I'm sure they go out shoot millions of hours of probably footage and have to come down. So I'm curious in terms of like editing or for composing and post, like I'm on a film, all composers have to deal with picture changes and conforming and all that. Is that the same with a documentary like this? Or is the final, like, is the lock picture like something that's always being pushed away, or do you finally get a lock picture to work on, or is there constant changes throughout the editing process?
There's definitely changes throughout the
Yeah.
process, and that's what I love about the training that I got there. It's like you're always ready for like the whiplash.
Right.
So yeah, we've had like when Austin and I were doing Eden, we were getting new cuts up like maybe a week before a deadline, and it was fun. We kind of like we held each other's hands through it, like we're gonna get through this edit and send it through. But at least I think when it's that close to deadline, the showrunners have also already heard drafts, so they've already kind of agreed to the direction of the music. It's just about refining and cutting
Yeah.
things here and there. So it's a fun process.
So yeah, so beyond, I mean, the world of nature documentaries, which almost I'm sure is a blessing and amazing to work in, but also probably refreshing to jump out of and kind of work in actual, some features and shorts and stuff. And you have a movie coming up that you also scored, Parallel, directed by Kurosh Ahari, co-composed with Josh Atchley. So I'm curious, talk to me about this film, because is it finished? Are you still working on it? And when can we expect to see it?
So it is finished.
Okay.
So this is like the first co-compose that I did with Josh, who happens to be my husband. So that
Oh
was a
wow.
very, yeah, it was a very, very fun and interesting and challenging experience. But Parallel is amazing. It's a film about a family that has to deal with grief in a setting where there's like sci-fi portals and not time travel, but it's like very sci-fi.
Yeah.
So it has a lot of the score that we wrote definitely leans towards this like darker emotional tone,
Hmm.
and it's one of the my favorite projects because the lead is is a female, first of all. So I really liked being able to tap into those female emotions,
Yeah.
and grief, paired together is just like, to me, it's like beautiful. And yeah, we had fun scoring it. We pretty much used a lot of synths. We used some vocals here and there, and we recorded our good friend Emer Kinsella. I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but she's a composer as well.
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
So we
I think I've met, but I've heard, I recognize the name.
She's amazing. So like we had her play violin, and yeah, I feel like it's just it's a such a beautiful experience because it's about a family, and I get to work on it with my husband. So that was really
Yeah.
nice.
So I mean, were you nervous about like working on something with him, or was it kind of just like it was a fun like emotional journey for you guys to take together? Because it's not just work, but you guys are exploring a story, and and I think for a family to have family working on something like that, it must have been it must have been rewarding, not just creatively, but just for you guys as a couple.
Yeah, I mean, let me preface this with I'm always nervous. No, no matter what it
Yeah.
is. Ask me if I was nervous. The answer is always going to be yes.
Okay. Noted.
So, yes, I was nervous getting into this because we haven't worked together in a long time.
Mm,
And I didn't know how the dynamic was going to be. And, um, but I think we also we faced a lot of challenges, but it made us work together better, and it really made us come up with really cool music. So
yeah, I bet.
I'm glad that we went through it, and that we're stronger as a couple, we're stronger as collaborators now because of that experience. Because like
Right.
I kind of have this like um hesitation to give feedback to him and get feedback from him, just because like
Yeah, I would
feeling
feel like I can't imagine working with my wife. She's not in the industry at all, but like to just be like, yeah, how do you come like if you really feel strongly about something and he feels strongly the completely opposite. I'm curious to compromise because you can't just like kind of be like duke it out a bit and then go home because when you're brushing your teeth, the guy is gonna be right there next to you. So I'm curious.
seriously like brush a little harder
Yeah.
like. But yeah, it was really, yeah, because we wear different, like we have a work personality and we have a family personality, so
Yeah.
it was so tricky merging the two. But like I said, we came out of it so much stronger, and the
Yeah.
music, because like there were some things where we both felt strongly about our opinions, and
Mhm.
we really had to just talk it through.
Yeah.
And I'm so lucky that our relationship is really strong, that we were able to like go through this challenge together and come up with something cool instead of something destructive.
Oh yeah, no, I think it also speaks volumes that again the trust that you guys have, I think, together personally to work and I it's weird to say personally and professionally because for composers I feel like music is life and every as I said, music is communication. Like you start off saying like you're communicating with words, but then you have to translate it into music. And at the end of the day, it's what's best for the story. So I think that's always like the easiest way. It's like what is the picture telling us that it needs versus kind of like what
Yeah,
do I want to put in it or something like that. So
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm
yeah,
glad we didn't resort to like, well, let's submit your version and my version and let's see what the client liked. Like, we didn't get there.
right. That's good.
Yeah, because that would have been like really chaotic. But
Because
like,
as
we didn't
a
get to that point.
yeah, the director would be like, oh crap, I'm in the middle of this. But that's awesome. I've talked to many husband and wife collaborating duos or best friends, like that, known each other for a while. And I think when you have that shorthand, it makes it just a lot easier and also fun. So I mean, if you want to work with somebody that you like, and I mean, that's the best way to do it. I mean, to keep it in the family. So so, but outside of parallel, I love that you're still kind of, a lot of composers start with shorts and then, maybe grow out of them. But you have a new short coming. I think short films shouldn't be seen as like a starter thing for anything. So you have this amazing Family Guide to Hunting, directed and co-written by Zhao Wang. So I'm curious about that and how did that come to be, and what was your approach for scoring a short for the short?
Well, I'm with you. I don't think short films should be seen as um
Like a
beginning
yeah,
steps.
like
Yeah.
student or like starting or anything or novice level or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's so much power in shorts because most shorts are independently made, and when it's independently made, like there's so much more room for experimentation. Like there's
Yeah.
not this like big request from the studio to follow these like tried and tested patterns. So I really, really had fun scoring Family Guide because Zhao was very receptive to my ideas. And this was one scenario where I wrote something before they got to shoot. And
Oh, wow.
Zhao and I workshopped the ideas, like we workshop a theme together. And he wasn't playing the music at the shoot, but it was definitely used at the edit stage. So
Yeah.
that was really fun. So the funny thing about Family Guide, I was actually working on it at the same time that Parallel was happening. And it's another story about a family, and they're both set in the forest.
Hmm.
And there's also a little bit of grief. Like they had so many similarities, but Family Guide is a dark comedy, whereas Parallel is a sci-fi drama. So I really enjoyed being immersed in the same world, but like
Different
telling different,
tones.
yeah,
Yeah, like, yeah.
very different tones. So it was really good for my ADHD because like, I could just like tap into this side and then or tap
Right.
into this one. Like, so it was really nice. And I love dark comedy. And like with, with Beef coming out this year, was or last year, this year, recently.
I think it was this
Um
year. Yeah.
this year, right? Yeah. Like I really, really enjoy this dark comedy tone. So working on
Yeah.
it with that was amazing. And I got to be like orchestral with it too. It
It's
starts out
awesome.
big and orchestral, and he wanted the full thing, and I'm so glad that he didn't ask me to like tone it down, like
Yeah.
got to just go full on. And yeah, and then it takes a turn somewhere in the middle, and I got to be a little bit more synthy. And in the end, it's just this like beautiful like piano theme that I play towards the end. And yeah, I'm so excited for that to come out as well.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I love shorts, and I think shorts are such an underrated and underexplored genre or just style of, I mean, of filmmaking, because it's funny because I feel like shorts, yeah, I've always kind of been put in the corner, like, oh, that's for when you're starting out, that's for students, that's for when you're getting ready, or you do it for no money. But like, if anything, what social media has taught us is that people love short form content. I mean, like, I don't want to use the word content, but just like reels and TikToks, and I just feel like there should be just these collections of shorts, I think. And we're seeing a little bit of it. I mean, I think Black Mirror, something like that, where you have these kind of short form episodes and stuff like that. The anthology series, I think, are great. But I would love more of that, because I know people these days, always complain about like, oh, I don't have time with this, but like to just jump into something like that and get that experience. Do you find it difficult to, I guess, do you find it more challenging when there's less real estate to work with in terms of length? Like you have to get through the three acts like quicker, or do you find it more, I guess, condensed and easier to kind of get them so you don't have to like, oh, I have to fill up fluff here and kind of wait till we get to like this reveal or this arc. So I'm curious, like, do you find it more challenging or less challenging, or is it just kind of the same approach?
It's like equally challenging
Yeah.
because if there's so much, then you just have to like, sometimes it feels like a chore to have to just fill in the gaps. But
Yeah.
then real estate was actually a word that we used a lot between me and Zhao when we were talking about the score, because it is a short film, and there were certain parts of the film where it felt like it could have used a score. But then
Hmm.
he was saying, but yeah, we don't have a lot of wiggle room to jump into this or to fully flesh out this emotion because we're jumping
Right.
to the next one right away.
Yeah.
So we had to be very efficient with like what are the scenes that we're really just highlighting. And that's what I
Yeah.
love about it, because you're efficient, and
Yeah.
you're just like you're using your time wisely, and you're using your audience's time wisely. Like let's not try to bring them all over the place. Let's
Yeah.
just the most important emotions for the protagonist, and then let's stick with that.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
it's a great exercise too, I think, for any storyteller. Because I remember, I think one of the first projects I ever did in film school, my professor was like, you need to make a 1 minute film. And if you go over 1 minute by 1 second, you fail the project. And it was like so precise. Like you have to keep this, you have to have, it was like the topic was like, have two subjects and they somehow meet in this 1 minute. You can create any story you want out of that, but it has to be under a minute. And I was like, okay, because me, I was like, when I write too long. I just, if I'm editing, I'll like make it a 3 hour cut, whatever. But so I was like 1 minute, like so.
Oh my gosh, that's even more challenging.
Yeah, I know, but it's a good exercise for people because, like, yeah, you have to be precise. You have to be you have to be efficient with what you're doing, and just you have to know when not to score and when to score. I mean, there's so many different things that come into play, and that's why I love about and then every project's different. Like it's only unique to that project. So,
Yeah.
but outside of the world of filmmaking and television, you still, I mean, you talked about all your background and bands and stuff, and I know you mentioned to me that you're working on some albums, collaborating with other songwriters. I'm curious, what are you working with? What are you working on outside of the world of scoring to visuals?
Yeah, so I am currently working on my own album.
Wow.
I feel like I've never given myself this time and space to just write and explore what I really am into. So I've been working on my album, and it's gonna be like, there's gonna be the film score, the cinematic side of it. I cannot like,
Yeah, you can't abandon that side of
yeah,
you.
like it's in my blood now,
Yeah.
I live and breathe film score. But then like I'm trying to infuse like all my other influences. Like I really like R&B grooves, like, and I really like the indie alternative scene. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to find, and it's meditative for me. It's also so enriching for me to figure out a way to put together all my different influences, and I'm really excited. Like I had just started, but there's
That's
that.
awesome.
Thank you. And then I'm also collaborating with my friend Dylan. She has an artist project called Slower Power, and she's one of my favorite songwriters out there. I'm a fan first, and but we're also friends. So when we
Mm.
started catching up, and I kind of just like hinted at her, like, hey, if you ever, need a keyboardist, like I would love to get back into playing. And she was like, full on, let's do it. And so I've been playing with her too. And I'm also like adding string arrangements to her stuff, which is such a dream. Like,
Yeah.
it is such a dream. Like, one of my favorite live performances ever is Daughter live at Air Studios. And it's them, the trio, but there's like, if I remember correctly, there's like a small ensemble of like woodwinds and timpani and just more orchestral elements. So,
Hmm.
and I really love Rob Moose's work. He adds string arrangements to a lot of indie artists like Phoebe Bridgers and Sarah Bareilles. Okay, Sarah's not indie, but anyway, that's like, to me, I'm being able to tap into that dream as well. So I'm really
Yeah.
happy to do that. Yeah.
And it must be refreshing to, especially on your kind of your solo album, where you're writing music that is not being dictated by the edit or dictated by notes or anything like that, where you get to just explore your own emotions and tell the musical story that you want. Is that when you don't have a picture to write to, are you still kind of crafting emotion, I mean, narrative arcs musically? Like, I'm curious what you're pulling out of yourself and what stories you're telling. I know we haven't heard it yet, but like you're just starting, but I'm curious of what your approach is and what you love about that process.
I mean, it's definitely challenging. I've been journaling a lot, and I've
Mm.
had to tell myself through my own like word writing that I have to let go of the editor. I need to let the artist in me come out
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
I'm so used to being a composer and an editor simultaneously, because time is of the essence, and
Yeah.
obviously there is something that we're having to complement. So it's always easier when I'm scoring films to just be, okay, that doesn't work. It's so easy for me to discount my ideas. But with this, I'm having to tell myself to just keep those gates open, like just write, and don't think about the editing first. Just kind of vomit it out, almost like just let out
Yeah.
all the emotions. And then when you feel like it's all out there, then I'm going to welcome in the editor, the producer, into
Right.
the process. Like, okay, let's add structure, let's add better instrumentation here and there. But what I've done so far is I'll do an improvisation session, and I'm
Mm,
gonna listen to what I've done, and think, what is this emotion? What am I trying to say here? And then
yeah.
I'll zero in on that emotion and I'll journal about it. And then I'll go throughout my life with this in mind, like trying to attract similar themes. Like I went to like a cycle class the other day, and something happened in cycle class where the instructor was saying these words of encouragement to one of my classmates, and
Mhm.
that kind of really stuck with me, and I take that with me. I went back into the studio, and I'm taking this memory with me of like that beautiful, like uplifting experience that I just witnessed, and I'm
Yeah.
going to write about it. So it's just like immersing in the improvisation and immersing in the theme that I find
Yeah, I
within.
mean, it must be. I mean, it's such a vulnerable, I think, process too. Like, and do you, when you're writing and you're doing this stuff, is this something that you do alone and you just kind of do this with yourself? Do you share it with your husband? Do you say, I came up with these ideas, or do you kind of keep this to yourself until it's like ready to present? I guess like some you have something to show for it, or do you like to talk it out with friends and family about the process, or is this like more of a private thing?
It's definitely more of a private thing because I'm
Mhm.
in the early stages of it.
Yeah, yeah,
However, because my husband is just right next door, it's inevitable he hears it.
right.
He walks past me and he hears it, and I get really self-conscious, but I've started to like just
Yeah,
kind of try to ignore that. But he'll hear it occasionally, and then when I'm out snacking, he'll be like, sounding really good, and then I'll talk to him about what I've found. And so that's the beauty of living in the same house with a composer and a
yeah,
musician as well. Like it's, you can't help but hear each other's work. But
yeah,
definitely it's between him and our dog, like nobody else has heard it. Like
yeah,
I'm very precious about it, and I will open it up more, I feel like, once I'm in the producer hat.
yeah.
But
To
now
get
that I'm,
other, yeah,
yeah, like take others opinions and influences, but for now it's more about this, like just
yeah.
personal and
Your
very,
process, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I love it. That's amazing. I mean, that's like that's gonna be, and that's gonna be something that you're gonna be so proud, I hopefully, to share, and then it's gonna be like, and something that came from you, and that's, yeah. I think it's gonna be so creative and rewarding. That's amazing that you're going on that journey. I can't wait to hear it.
It's nerve-wracking, but
Yeah, it is. But everything, I think storytelling is nerve-wracking because it is. It's all emotion. We're all pulling from ourselves in some way, even if it is for a big studio film or a small short. It's like you're throwing part of yourself out there. And it is a, like, I'll be watching a movie sometimes and I'm like listening to what the dialogue is, and I'm like, God, this writer must have been going through something, like, like, it's just like, and I think somebody posted recently in the perspective forum or something, it was just like, how do I write happy music if I'm feeling like down today or something? Like, you always forget, like, that's a great thing to put out, because like, yeah, we're all human, we're all going through life, and sometimes it is work sometimes, and you are under a tight deadline and budget and stuff, but composers are the emotional, I think, conduit. And it's just, I always like think about like being in certain emotional headspaces, and I think for you to have this project that's your own, and it's very kind of natural and not being like forced out of you, I think it's going to be amazing. So that's awesome, congrats. But before we wrap up this evening, I want to kind of finish, before we start recording, we're just talking about how this, we're going through kind of these significant changes in the industry right now. I mean, it's a big shift, not just in the types of movies are being made, but just in terms of, what SAG and WJ are striking for, and fighting. Composers are in a unique position because you guys don't have a union, so it's like you're all fighting for yourselves collectively too. But we're all, all the people who make the stories that people love, we are all who do it for a living. We're kind of going through this shift right now. So I'm curious, from your perspective, you've been doing this, for a while now. You're kind of a veteran of the industry. What are some things that you really are positive things that you see that are happening right now? What are things that we really need to pay attention and still kind of work on, in your opinion?
I
Oh,
think
I
you
think you.
cut out. Yeah, you cut out. Okay. I lost you at what are the positive things that I'm seeing, and what else was
Okay, I'll rephrase it. So
okay.
so I'll just start over.
Okay.
as we wrap up this evening for our chat, I just wanted to leave on asking you about, we are going through such a big shift in our industry. The business it's changing, it's adapting, the audiences are changing, what we're making is changing. So I'm curious, as we see everything that's kind of happening right now, what are some of the good things, kind of the optimistic things that you feel good about that are happening in the industry? What are some things that you still are looking at and go, we really should, pay attention to this and, need some changing? So I'm curious, from your perspective, you've been doing this for such a long time now. What are the good and the bad things that you're seeing right now in the industry?
I feel like it's definitely the diversity push has been so encouraging over the past few years.
Yeah.
At the same time, I also live in fear that because of all the changes in the industry right now, it's gonna get pulled back.
Mm.
So it's been very encouraging. And now that I'm more immersed in the community, I definitely see a lot of positivity where we're all just trying to help each other, and
Yeah.
we all feel like we are victims of the situation. So there's definitely a stronger push to help each other out. And that's something that I have been holding onto for dear life, because
Yeah. Yeah.
if not that, like it's looking really dark.
Hmm.
So I'm glad that the community is coming through, but also I'm also afraid that with budgets getting cut, are diverse stories gonna get cut too? Is there gonna be a halt to that? Did we have our time and that's it? Like,
Yeah.
so I'm eagerly waiting to see what happens after, but I'm focused on looking at the positive side, where there are still groups that are focused on pushing for diversity, and I'm just trying to stay connected with those people, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because even before the strike, and it was before this, all these mergers that were happening, I felt like, because I always felt like, everyone, it's easy to criticize Marvel and DC and how these superhero movies came in and kind of just like washed out the whole industry. And it's like, it needs to be a $250 million blockbuster that has to earn $1 billion, and it has to service every single demographic. But I felt like before the pandemic, I was seeing more of that kind of mid-range drama kind of coming back up, and more diverse stories and unique filmmaker, and from coming from different backgrounds and different walks of life. And then it felt like pandemic and then like all these mergers kind of like halted a lot of that progress. But I'm hoping that, like, hopefully like people, like at least the big companies that own, are running this stuff, see that you don't need to make a $250 million movie every time, and make a
Yeah.
$50 million movie, make an $80 million, give an original voice. Like, I really think that Talk to Me, like that recent horror film, was such a beautiful example of that. And I love that A24 is really kind of giving this platform for young filmmakers from different nationalities and different, all these different places of, in the world, to tell stories, and they do so well. And the fact that Everything Everywhere All at Once won Best Picture really made me hopeful. Like, okay, thank goodness. Like, this was such an original film, and it like made me, just like broke me like emotionally, but in a good way. And I was just like, this makes me hopeful. Like, and it was made for so cheap, under like crazy
Oh,
deadlines and constrictions, like two guys doing the visual effects. I mean, it's crazy. Like, so
yeah, and a lot of practical effects too. Like they
yeah,
really are so resourceful with it. So
I
yeah,
know. Yeah, so I
that
think
like it's a great example, a great proof of concept that you don't
yeah,
have to cut out our stories. We can do it. We can keep
yeah.
telling them.
Yeah, so I'm hopeful for it. I know that's maybe easy to be pessimistic with everything going around, but I think I'm really glad. I mean, the strikes have been difficult, but they're very important, I think, and they're fighting. And it was just the actors and the writers. Like, now they're fighting for everybody right now. Like, the whole kind of like the fate of the industry. So
I saw that animators were planning to strike or
I
something
well
like.
there's a lot of talk about unionization, like, and I
Oh,
know across like Nickelodeon and Warner Brothers, they're coming together to try to get union representation. So I think, and these strikes have ignited that, and I think I mentioned that, composers don't have a union, so it's like it's difficult to have that support group when you're going up against these billion-dollar corporations. It's one person is very easy to just knock off. So um
yeah.
and especially, AI is a whole different topic. Could we go on and on about that? But so yeah, so there's a lot of things to worry about. But
There is, but we can't just simmer in that worry.
yeah,
We
we
have
can't
to
just,
keep
yeah, we can't
going.
just wallow and accept,
Yeah,
storytelling has always been it is what makes us unique. It's human. It's always been human, down to sitting around at a campfire and telling stories. It's like, that's what I see as a theater. The glow of the screen is the campfire, all these strangers sitting and shared, like, I think that can't go away. I don't think society would allow that. So I'm hopeful for it. So
do.
yeah.
Let's be hopeful together.
Yes. Well, Denise, I want to thank you so much for your time this evening. It was, I mean, it's such a blast to get into your world and share all your insights. Thank you for sharing all your insights. So I've been such a fan of your music, and it's so great to hear from your perspective. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I had so much fun.